Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining our diagnostic training session today. Now, what you're about to see is a pre-recorded training session we did over in the United States. But be assured that a lot of the material that we cover is really applicable to any automotive application. So just be aware that yes, it is a lot of North American vehicles, but a lot of the same principles apply over in the UK as well. Now, if you have any questions, if you're watching this during the premiere, you can just leave it in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. And if you're watching this after the premiere, then just feel free to leave a comment underneath the video, and we'll get to those as we can as well. So my name is Jason Gabrenas. I'm one of Snap-on Diagnostics technical trainers. I've been in the training department since 2013, traveling around North America, helping techs and shop owners get the most out of their diagnostic equipment. Before I did that, it was a couple years as a diagnostic sales rep at Snap-on, so I had a group of about 30 different franchisees I worked with, as well as the shops that they service, in order to help everyone get the most out of their diagnostic needs. Then before I did that, it was 8 years at Subaru, so I worked in a dealership, and over time, I guess, I just became that default diag guy in the shop. So I always ended up having the drivability problems, the intermittent problems, the weird wiring problems that would show up on those cars. And that's really where I cut my diagnostic teeth, was trying to figure out all those weird head scratcher type cars that had come into my bay. Then before that, a bunch of other miscellaneous wrenching jobs. Been a little over 25 years under hood experience for me. So our topic today, we are continuing on our OEM-specific ADAS training series, and this time, this is actually the last one out of the series, and this is also by special request. Someone commented on a post that we made, and they said, hey, what about Mazda? So I said, sure, we could do Mazda, so we're going to do Mazda this time, and this is the last one out of our OEM-specific ADAS training. So let's get into it. So the first vehicle that we're going to discuss here is the 2021 CX-5. So in that vehicle, as far as ADAS equipment, we have 5 cameras. We have the one up in top in the windshield, as usual, for lane keep assistant. And then, of course, we have 4 around the outside for the 360 view. This one has 3 radars, front one used for adaptive cruise control, 2 in the rear for blind spot monitoring, and it has 8 park assist sensors. So 4 in the front, 4 in the back, to help with that park assist. As far as the front high mount camera, it is in by the rearview mirror, as we can see here. So there's the connector there, there's the camera there, and it's in a little tray or assembly up there. Now with these, much like many Asian OEMs, they require targets for most of the resets relearns. Some OEMs, they also allow a dynamic calibration, but as far as the vehicles we're going to talk about for Mazda today, they are a static recalibration. So if you go through the service information, first thing it says is, hey, you need to make sure you're on a level floor, no weird pitches, and the target's got to be in the right spot. Here's how much room you need. So it looks like about 4 meters out by about 7 meters wide, and then about 2 meters high, maybe 3 meters high. That's how much room you need around you. So some of these, especially for cameras, a lot of the targeting area needs a decent amount of room. And then the special tools. So in order to find the center line for the vehicle, in this case, much like many other Asian manufacturers, let's use a plumb bob. And we'll go off this center envelope and find the center line of the car and draw some chalk lines on the floor and make some measurements, as a lot of OEMs do. There's other ways to do it, of course. With our Easy ADAS system, you have laser tape measures and lasers that can find the center line a lot easier. Or the True Point makes it even easier because it puts the vehicle in a 3D space. It makes it a little easier. But as we're going through here, I'll put these different points on the floor, find the center line. And then in this case, I found this was kind of interesting. Few OEMs did this, kind of at the very beginning of ADAS showing up on cars. But now, this is a 21, so you would think that they'd gotten to the point now where they have factory targets. And they probably do have factory targets, to be honest with you. I know we sell targets for it. But in this case, it says print out 6 sheets of paper, some black, some white, right? And then we're going to arrange them in this pattern, and then we're going to make sure we tape it on the back, because it says when taping 2 target sheets together, the cellophane tape is affixed to the front of the target. Sheets that can reflect light and adversely affect the aiming accuracy, right? So we want to make sure that we're taping them on the back if we're doing this. And we're going to tape it all together and make sure the measurements are correct, because if the measurements are off, it's not going to calibrate correctly either. And then in this case, it says use a wooden board which does not reflect light to affix the target. So it looks like maybe a matte white painted piece of plywood you could use, so you can build your own targets. They're teaching you how to DIY your own targets. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Or like I said, you could easily use an ADAS calibration rig if you have one. So there we go. Put the target there, and then we're going to start up the
the scan tool, and we're going to have it perform the aiming procedure based on those targets. Next one is the front radar. So that will be found in the, it's actually under smart brake support, Mazda radar cruise controls, where that one shows up. And of course, that's under special functions, and it's going to be radar aiming. So this one also has a reflector. So you'd want to go into service information, of course, find out exactly where you need to put that reflector. I bet you it probably also, they're saying with a plumb bob and some chalk again, because everything runs off the center line of the vehicle. Now, if you have an ADAS recalibration rig, like I said before, makes things a lot easier, a lot less measurement in that case anyways, less having to draw on the floor and things. So set up the reflector where it needs to be, refer to the workshop manual. So you'd of course refer to service information. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. And then it's going to go through a little countdown, preparing it. And then it's going to basically fire the radar. Hopefully it hits the reflector and it reflects back properly. And then it'll give you a pass fail. Basically it's successful or unsuccessful is what you would get at the end. Similar situation with the rear corner radars. So those are also going to need a reflector and a decent amount of space behind them. But those are separate monitors. So we have blind spot monitoring left, blind spot monitoring right. And if we go into functional tests on one of them, there's radar aiming using reflector. And then it's normally performed on the blind spot monitor module with radar is removed or replaced. Was it removed or the bumper removed? And you hit yes or no. Don't turn the blind spot monitoring switch off because it needs to make sure it is on and firing the radar, and make sure there's no codes, of course. And then it gives you the option to do just the right side, just the left side, or both sides in a combination. So we turn the key on, refer to the workshop manual to set that reflector again. So it's kind of like the triangle or pyramid mounted on its side, and that's where to set the target. Don't press the throttle pedal. If you press the throttle pedal, it'll go out, do something, turn it off or something like that, where it won't. It basically negates being in alert mode. It goes through, fires the radar, gives you a pass fail. And it's fairly straightforward other than the fact that you need targets for all this stuff, right? So much like most other manufacturers, it's go through the scan tool, tell it to fire the radar or what have you. And then it just goes off the reflector. So a lot more work with the reflectors, but after that's set up, it's fairly straightforward. Now, as far as the 360 camera, here's the front camera that appears mounted, just below the emblem there. You can see the emblem where the grill would be, and that is under the view monitor camera in this case. So they call it the surround view, the 360 view, whatever you want to call it. They call it the view monitor camera. So that's where we'd go. Then we go into special functions. 360-degree VMC aiming, and then it's going to tell you all of the different parameters that are necessary. Vehicle needs to be empty of all occupants. Cargo can only have the spare tire jack and tools, so basically it needs to be as it rolled off the assembly line, which many recalibrations, it needs to be done that way because that's how it was calibrated originally. Make sure the tire pressures are correct. Move the vehicle to level ground. Correct front camera aiming cannot be done if the setting, surface, height, and angle between the vehicle and the target marker differ. So need to make sure everything's on a nice level floor. Vehicle and target marker setting surface must be performed on level ground. Level ground conditions must be within 2 degrees of front and back. Do not move or shake the vehicle during aiming adjustment. Remove dust or dirt from the lens. The voltage of the 360 view monitor control module must be 9.5 to 15.5 volts. That's another thing. When you're doing calibrations, very often it's going to take, you're going to have a lot of modules on, so it might drain the battery in the amount of time you're trying to do this. So it is suggested to use some sort of a battery maintaining device, like not like a battery charger, like a battery maintainer that you might use for, say, flash programming or something like that, where it has a nice steady voltage output for that. And then make sure there's no codes, and then we'd hit go. And then it's going to say, okay, set marker by the vehicle display monitor. So you can use the monitor on the vehicle, or all camera aiming, or individual camera aiming. Select which camera to adjust the marker positions, refer to the workshop manual, and set a target. So there's, once again, targets that would go on the floor for this. Always carry out the function according to the entire service procedure recommended in the workshop manual. Don't skip any steps. And if we wanted individual, you could do front, rear, left, or right mirror camera, or just simply exit. You go in, turn the key on, set the marker, settle in the red frames, the vehicle display monitor, push continue when you're done, and then it would go through, and then continue setting the marker for the other cameras. You can just go through individual cameras and set them that way. Select which camera to adjust the marker positions, and then we can choose whatever one we're going to do. Make sure you follow this procedure, and then we would just go to whatever camera we wanted to do next. So say we did front, then we did rear, then we did left, then we did right. There's no specific order necessarily that needs to be done. But if you needed to do all four, you could do them continuously through that process, right? You get done with one and then move on to the next one, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. So as far as the sonar, no real calibrations needed for it, just kind of clips in the bumper like most other manufacturers. The majority of other manufacturers don't have any sort of reset relearn. There's a couple that we've gone through this year that do, but in this case we don't. So the parking sensor module is going to give you codes and data basically. All right, so that's the CX5. Next one we have is a 2022 CX9. So this one has 5 cameras again, front up top for lane keep, 360 view around the outside, 3 radars, one front for adaptive cruise, 2 in the back for blind spot monitor, 8 ultrasonic sensors, and park assist. Front camera, once again, is going to look very similar. We only have a 3-year range of different vehicles we have here. So this one and the CX5 are going to be very, very similar, almost identical to how they would go through that. So forward sensing camera, anything to do in there is going to be in the forward sensing camera. Of course, we have the targets involved and all that. Front radar looks a little bit different, but it's going to be the same basic procedure. We're going to go through the Mazda radar cruise control and go through the functional test that way with the radar reflector. Rear radar, same deal. Reflectors in the corners individually, side by side. Going to do it that way, and those are in the either left or right, depending on what it is. You can see the pictures are a little bit different, but the circumstances are going to be exactly the same. Front camera is below the emblem there. And then that would be once again in the view monitor camera. You can go through to individual cameras or all cameras kind of in a sequence. Sonar, once again, clips into the bumper. No special anything needed for calibration. But that will be in the parking sensor module for codes and data. All right, now we get to the, I guess, the most well-equipped one out of the 3. So this is a 2023 CX30 here. And this one actually has 6 cameras. It has the lane keep up high. It has the 4 around the outside for 360 view. And this one also has a driver monitoring camera to make sure you're paying attention to the road. If we don't pay attention to the road, of course, it's going to alert us and say, hey, look at the road, pay attention, or maybe take a rest, right? You could see you're dozing off or something like that. 5 radar on this one. So it's got the one in front middle for adaptive cruise, 2 in the rear on each corner for blind spot monitoring, and 2 in the front for cross traffic alert. And this one also has 8 ultrasonic sensors for park assist. Front camera, slightly different picture, but basically the same type of deal. Mounts up above the mirror. And this one, as you can see, it has a few more modules, including that driver monitoring camera. But we have forward sensing camera is going to be the camera, and it's going to be the same type of target type system. Slight changes made year to year, but in this case, the target's going to be the same. 360 camera, here's an example of one that's in the mirror. So that one is in the 360 view monitor camera. So we added the 360 name to it, but it's essentially the same process. We go in there under special functions, aiming, and then it's going to give us the same warnings. We actually have a couple more things with the temperature and stuff like that. And then we can do, once again, all camera aiming or individual camera aiming or simply exit. Front radar in the center is right behind the emblem there. So we can see how it kind of just mounts behind that emblem. And if you've ever saw one of these out on the road, you'll see the emblem is kind of like an opaque. It's not fully like blacked out or a background. It's kind of like a translucent, I guess would be a better word for that. That allows the radar beam to pass through. So it still kind of covers it, but it allows the radar beam to pass through and do that. So we have the front radar sensor there is where that would be. And then, of course, special functions there. Front radar sensor dynamic aiming in this case. So this time we've gotten away in 23. They must have changed the radar type, and they've gone from the static with the cone to a dynamic where I'm driving down the road. So that's kind of a nice, it helps when I just have to drive it and I don't need a target. So always carry the function according to the service procedure. Careful the tester doesn't disconnect from the vehicle. No other function is selected. Confirm that the scan tool battery is charged enough and cancel any sleep modes. This test may take approximately 15 minutes, and basically you need to have the scan tool on the whole time, not go to sleep. For safety, driver must pay attention to the road while driving, not watch the tester screen during this test. So you might want to do it with a buddy. So the ignition on, and then make sure you are running, the vehicle's running, and then you would drive it. So basically it puts it in dynamic aiming mode. We hit continue, and it says follow these conditions for approximately 15 minutes until it says complete on this screen. So it must be 3 miles an hour or more. Decel must be less than 2.5 meters per second squared or less. Straight road, turning radius of 100 meters or more, or straight road, 100 meters or more. Road with structures, guardrails, building signs. Driving the vehicle while matching the above conditions does not have to be continuous, but it's helpful if it is because it'll take less time if it is. Refer to workshop manual for things that might cause it to not complete successfully. And then you hit continue and drive the vehicle until it says complete. Easy enough. This one, as I said, it also has front side radars. So the front center radar is behind the emblem. These two are on the corners mounted to the bumper fascia. And on those cases, we have both a left and a right in here and special functions. And then these also have dynamic aiming, which is nice. Go to the service procedure, key on, and basically it just hooks it up and says, all right, scanner's done. Vehicle's now in dynamic aiming mode. Drive it, in this case, 12 miles an hour or more. Same other basic rules apply. It just has to be over 12 miles an hour. So about 15 minutes under the following conditions. And then that will go through. And then the aiming mode PID would go switch from on to off once it's done. Just like that. Switch to off. Rear radar in this case is going to be, once again, in this case, that is a left and right, but they're kind of down towards the end here. They're not in the middle. So left and right, individuals, special functions. And once again, we've gone to dynamic aiming on this. So we have a left rear side radar sensor dynamic aiming, or right rear. In this case, we picked the left. So follow procedure, key on, and then basically it puts it in learn mode and you drive it. Same basic driving as the front radar, just for the rear radar. Same deal. Drive it till the PID says off. You're done. So I far prefer dynamic aiming, and I'm sure you probably would too, just because it's set it and drive it. Easy enough. Now here's the ultrasonic sensors. This is actually a pretty good view of where they sit in the bumper. I kind of like that one. Just to kind of get a situational awareness, kind of where it is, which is nice. And in that case, that is the park assist unit. And once again, that is just codes and data. So no aiming procedures or anything, resets, relearns, recalibrations, none of that for that. All right, let's go live on the tool and see what we can see. We'll look through some service information and all that. All right, so let's pull up our first vehicle, which is the CX-5, and we'll go in a scanner. And we scroll down a little bit, we can see where all our ADAS and driver's aids are down here, right? But if I want to go up here, the service resets, and then we can come down here, for example, replace or calibrate front radar, right? So if I wanted to do the front radar on this thing, I can click on that. And it's going to give me functional resets, and that will give me my radar aiming directly right from there. Otherwise, if I have snap-on repair information, shop key Mitchell, I can go up to repair information, and it'll link me directly and also do a search for this job that I'm doing here. So in this example, it'll say the millimeter wave radar, which is the front radar. Logs me in. Logs the vehicle in, wave radar unit, I guess. Click on that. And then we can see we have location, remove and replace. I'm going to go to after repair to see what needs to be done after the fact. And we can see there's my reflector. There's a little stand for it, a little plumb bob. As we said before, you have to make sure it's on level ground, make sure there's enough room in front of the vehicle. And then there's your leveling line and make some marks on the ground, and so on and so forth. I said it's a lot easier if you have some sort of an ADAS rig, and if you're doing this with any regularity, that makes it a lot easier. But in a pinch, if I got a plumb bob and some chalk and a couple measuring tapes, I should be able to at least get it where it needs to be, right? So a lot of, and then we go into radar aiming inside the scan tool, and then it'll go. Now, if it's unsuccessful, it'll actually give you an error code as well, proper target position, angle, etc. So that's helpful if you ever need that. Let's go into the CX9, which is going to be very similar. In this case, let's look at blind spot monitor, I guess. Functional tests. So the radar tests normally perform when the module is removed or replaced. Do not press the off switch. And then you could do right side or left side or both right and left side. So let's just say left side, for example. I think it might give me an error here. For the workshop manual, set the target. Don't press the throttle pedal like we said. And then there's the communications failure because I'm not hooked up to it. But I think if we go over here to our repair information, we should be able to see blind spot sensor. And there's different settings in there and everything. And then if we go to remove and replace, inspections to do. That's for the mirror indicator. And if we go into the sensor itself, there we go. There's our radar test. Looks like it uses the same special tool, which is nice, as the front. And it's going to walk you through the same type of information, except in this case, we need some room in the rear. So there's some semicircles that show you how much room you need in the rear, a little bit of a radius. And that's kind of where you put them there. And then the last one we will want to go to is the CX30. And like we said, this one has some other things in there. Driver monitoring camera doesn't really have more than codes and data, but it does have a separate module for that. And then most of these are, like I said, dynamic recalibrations. So if I wanted to do like the left front, special function, left front side radar sensor dynamic aiming, let's follow the service procedure. So it's ignition on. And it puts it in dynamic mode, and then we would go into here's how to drive it. And then wait till our PID changes. Now, of course, this is in demonstration mode, so it's just going to flip back and forth between on and off. But you would just drive along until it is complete when aiming mode PID displays off. So once it says off, then you would know it is complete. Easy enough. Like I said, a lot of them, at least the first two had the targets, right? So we had those. On the newer one, the 2023 doesn't have targets. It's mostly dynamic, so that one would be a little bit easier. A lot of manufacturers seem to be kind of going that way. If they had used targets in the past, they end up going to either just the dynamic aiming, which is driving down the road, or they have the option to do either or. I can do a static with the target, or I can do a dynamic driving down the road. And it seems like Mazda is kind of heading towards that dynamic way, which is, makes life a lot easier, a lot less equipment to have, a lot less room needed in the shop where you can just drive it down the road, right? So that is ADAS on Mazda.
And with that, that's our time here today. So make sure you tune in for new diagnostic content every week. We'll be premiering a new video every Wednesday at 7 p.m. UK time, so make sure to check it out here on our YouTube channel. Please make sure you also subscribe, thumbs up, and ring that little notification bell so you'll know anytime we post new content. With that, time for questions. Now, if you have any questions, once again, if you're watching this on the Premiere, just leave it in the live chat and we'll do our best to answer those. Otherwise, leave a comment under the video and we'll get to those as we monitor those comments as well. So I'd like to thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to learning a little bit more about how you might be able to be more efficient at diagnosing vehicles using some of the information that we've been giving you today. Hopefully we'll see you next week, and we'll see you on any of our other videos. Have a good week, have a good night, and take care.